Jai Hind everyone. This is Achintya Pandey as an assistant professor in Department of Information Technology at Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College. Today I will discuss inheritance. Okay, and basically the title essential for effective object-oriented programming. Okay, so we will discuss the basic concept of inheritance and how the inheritance help to reuse the code and all that we will discuss. Okay, so the objective is to explore the concept of inheritance, which is effective for object oriented programming. Okay, so okay, so let's have some brief thing. Object or just okay. So in terms of the languages like object oriented, it is divided into two categories: object based programming language and object oriented programming language. So object based programming language doesn't support the concept of inheritance and dynamic binding, but object oriented programming, and that has two additional features, and that is the inheritance and dynamic binding, right? So all the feature of object based and inheritance and dynamic binding is also are also in object oriented language. Okay, so okay, so what is inheritance? So inheritance is basically how we are going to reuse the code. Okay, how we are going to reuse the code could be reused if somewhere it is required, right? So we did not write that thing, we simply inherit. Okay, means the common property and behavior of a class could be simply inherited by another class. So inheritance is the concept by which the feature of one class could be inherited into another class, right? So the capability of class to derive property and characteristics from another class is called inheritance. It is one of the most important feature of object oriented language. Why it is most important? Because by this way one could reuse something which is existence. Like if we talk about software development, so something we can't predict what could be the requirement after 10 years in terms of client and all, right? So we can make a class of today's requirement, and if something is to be added, we will only add that functions, and rest we could inherit it from today's class and all. Okay, so it is a feature of process in which new classes are created from the existing class. The new class is called derived class, or sometimes called it is child class. Okay, and the existing class is known as base class. Okay, or sometimes it is called parent class. So the derived class now is said to be inherited from the base class. Means all the member and function could be the part of member of the derived class, and that's why we can say that we are going to inherit the base class. Okay, so when we say derived class inherit the base class, it means the derived class inherit all the properties of the base class without changing the property of base class, and may add new feature to its own. Okay, these new features in the derived class will now affect the base class. Okay, so here like already told, okay, we have super class, sometimes it is called parent class or base class, and the new class, the which is also called child class, or sometimes called derived class or subclass, will also be there, right? So for example, let's have this we have created a class vehicle. Okay, and these all are the function like fuel amount, capacity, apply brakes and all. So this is the basically implementation, or you can say mechanism, okay, required. So vehicle class could be further subdivided into some class like bus class, car class and truck. So these subclass will have all the feature of class vehicles, but class bus has its own some exclusive features which doesn't have car class or even truck class. Okay, but vehicle class will all have the features. Okay, so using an inheritance, we have to write the function only one time instead of 3 times, as we have inherited the rest of the 3 classes from the base class. Okay, so here we will see the basic programming in C++, how we could implement the inheritance in C++. Okay, so how we create a class? So what we write? Simple class, what we write? Class. If you want to create a name of class is simply uh, we write CLASS class and the name of the class, and whatever data you want to write or include, you can. It could be public, private or protected, and whatever function you require just to access this variable and all, we could create. Okay, so how could we create, I mean, subclass or derived class in C++? Let's have this. Okay, so if you want to create a derived class, just for creating simple class, you required to write just class A, and then you could write the member variable, then you could write the member function. This is the syntax of creating class in C++. Now, how you are going to create its child class or subclass or derived class? So the syntax for this is simply you to write colon. Okay, and so let's see with this example. Like if you want to create a derived class and name of the derived class, and you would have to use this symbol colon and then access specifier base class. Access specifier, there are 3 types of access specifier. One is public, private and protected. Okay, so class is a keyword to create a new class. Derived class means name of the new class which inherit the base class. Access specifier, either private, public or protected. If no access specifier is mentioned, meaning is this will be the private. So by default class will be the private. Okay, so private taken by default. So let's see here. If we write like class ABC colon private XYZ, meaning is that ABC is the subclass, a derived class. Okay, and XYZ is the parent class. Okay, so this we can say, and this is the kind of single inheritance. Means ABC is going to inherit XYZ. So XYZ could have created in earlier, and now we want something exclusive. I mean some feature exclusive which is exclusive to ABC. So here we could write the function for that. Okay, and the rest of the thing which we want to access which belong to this XYZ that could be simply inherited. Okay, so these all are the syntax like class ABC colon public XYZ, protected XYZ and all. So this is called private derivation, public protected, like the access specifier. Likewise, access specifier mentioned, we could say that it is privately derived, publicly derived, or protected derived. Okay, so this is what. Okay, so if somehow we do not mention private, so by default compiler will assume or will assign the default class as a private. Okay, okay. So there is some important point which need to be noted down. When a base class is privately inherited by the derived class, public member of the base class become the private member of the derived class, and therefore the public member of the base class can only be accessed by the member function of the derived class. Okay, they are inaccessible to the object of the derived class. On the other hand, when the base class is publicly inherited by the derived class, public member of the base class also become the public member of the derived class. Therefore, the public member of the base class are accessible by the object of the derived class as well as by the member function of the derived class. Meaning is that Let's suppose we derive a class privately. Okay, so if we derive base class, I mean derive as a private. Okay, so meaning is that member function of that base class will be inaccessible by these derived class. Why? Because private members could only be accessed by the member function of that base class. Suppose if a class has, let's suppose a class, okay, class A, and there are private, say int A equal to 5. So this is the private. If somehow public, we write public and we are going like int B equal to 7. Okay, sorry. Int B equal to 7. So this A is private member. So private member in a class could only be accessed by the member function of that class. Okay, private member of a class could only be accessed by the member function of the class. Let's see here. I think this is not visible. So let's have in a class, for example, class A. Here it could have private member, I mean, or a class even could have, say, int B equal to 7. So what I want to say is that in a class, if there are private members, they are accessible, they could be accessed only by the member function of that class. For example, if A has some function like fun A or kind of, so in a class, private member can only be accessed by the member function of that class. They could not directly be accessed by the object of that class, object of A. So let's suppose obj in main function, we are going to create, like in main, we are going to create the object of A. So by this object, this variable cannot be accessed, right? Only the private, only the public, I mean either member variable or function could be accessed by the object of that class. So suppose even a base class is going to inherited privately by some derived class. So while inheriting privately to the base class, they all become the private to this derived class. So once become private, they cannot directly access by the object of that derived class. All right, they could even be accessed by the function. Function means member function of the derived class. That is going. That is the meaning of this point, right? Okay, so there are three mode of inheritance. One is public mode, second is protected mode, and third one is private mode. Okay. So if we derive a subclass from a public base class, then the public member of the base class will become public, correct, in the derived class, and protected member of base class will become protected. Okay. Similarly, protected mode. If we derive a subclass from a protected base class, then both public member and protected member of the base class will become protected in the derived class. Okay. In the derived class means the member of the base class will become protected in derived class, because they, once a class is going to inherit all the member function or variable, they could also become the member of the derived class. So once it is going to inherited by public, so they become the public or protected. But once it is going to protected, so public and protected both become the protected. And in a private mode, both either public, protected or private, they all become private to this derived class. So if we derive a subclass from a private base class, then both public member and protected member of the base class will become private in the derived. That is the point need to be considered. Okay. So simply they, if once become the private to either derived class or even of its own, so they could not directly access by the object of that class. Simple. Meaning is simple. Okay. They could only be accessed just like a private member could be accessed by the member function of that class. Simple. Okay. Okay. So this is what this table summarizes the above three modes and shows the access specifier of the members of the base class in subclass. So here we could see the base class member access is public. Okay. So if type of inheritance, these all are the type of inheritance, and while it is public, everything becomes public, protected become protected, private become protected. Privates. Okay. If it is going to inherit a protected, so public also become protected, protected also become protected, and private becomes private. Now this suppose base class, these type of three different mode of data or functions. So they are going to privately access. Means derived class is going to derive base class as in a private mode. So even public becomes private. They are not accessible by the object of that class. So this is not accessible. Return protected also not accessible, and private also not, because they become the private even of the derived class, and once become the private of the derived class, they could only be accessed by the member function of the derived class, not by the object of the derived class. That's all. Okay. So inheritance is basically how a class could be inherited from some another class. Okay. So a class means the property of a base class could be inherited in a derived class. So there could be multiple types. So one is called single inheritance. There are multi-level inheritance. They could be of multiple inheritance. They could be of hierarchical inheritance, and they could be of hybrid inheritance. So there are, we can say, as mainly 5 different type of or category of inheritance could be implemented. Okay, like here, this is the single inheritance. Single means just one level of inheritance. So here class B is going to inherit class A. So A become base class or parent class, B become derived class or subclass. So this is the example of single level inheritance. Say here this is the base class, and this is the this person is the derived class. So B is the derived class and A is the base class, and this is the syntax which you could create. So by creating the object of B, you could access all the variables or member of B as well as A. We do not need to create the object of A. They could access by the B even. Okay, that is the advantage of inheritance. This is a simple program like base class we have. Okay, base class like vehicle, we have base class. This is the function. Here we have car, a class. Okay, and this base class is going to access publicly. So we have created the object of car that is derive obj, and we will see that the function could be accessed by the obj. Once you say obj dot vehicle, it could be invoked by the it could be invoked simply the function in the base class. Multiple inheritance. Multiple inheritance. Before multiple inheritance, you should know multi-level inheritance. Like single level inheritance, so here could be multi-level. Like say B, A is going to inherit B, which is further going to inherit class C. Okay, means more than one level. This situation is called, or this type of inheritance is called multi-level. Class, or we can say class C is going to be inherited by B, which is itself going to be inherited by class A, you can make this level one level further below. Okay, like even class A could be inherited by say class P. So class P, okay. So means just kind of creating subgrouping and all we could make up depending on the requirement. This could be a multi-level. So here this is the example, like we have class C, this is the base class, this C is going to inherited by this derived class B, and this even B is going to inherited by A. Ultimately A is going to inherit B as well as C. Okay, so even the function of C or B, say which is defined publicly, they could directly be accessed by the object of A. No need to create the object of B or C. Okay. Okay. Third one is you can say multiple inheritance. So meaning of multiple inheritance, if a class has more than one base class. So this type of inheritance, if a class has more than one class, meaning is that this, for example, let's see in the figure, class A is having two parent class. Means there are there are two paths. Okay. B is also inherited by A, C is also inherited by A. So this, I mean, type of inheritance is called multiple. So you can say if a class has more than one base class, so this comes under the multiple inheritance. Okay. So multiple is a feature of C where a class can inherit from more than one class. That is, one subclass is inherited from more than one base class. So if a class has more than one base class, so this is called multiple inheritance. Okay. Like see in the example, we have base class B, we have another class C, and this class A which is derived class, and they are going to access, I mean they are going to inherit B as well as C. So we simply need to put a comma between two base class. Okay. It could have, I mean, not only two base class, it could have more than two base class. Simply you will write the comma, and you could write as many class as we required. Multi-level we have already discussed. Then we have hierarchical inheritance. Like hierarchical inheritance, it is just like as a tree structure. Tree card, a node have two child or more than two child. Then the descendant could have further child and all. So hierarchical inheritance is category of tree kind of structure, like we see in the data structure and all. Like class C will have two subclass here B, and class G is having two derived class B and E. Further class B could have say two class or three subclass. So this type of inheritance is called hierarchical inheritance. It is also called as a tree kind of structure. So if a tree kind of a structure are there, so this comes under the hierarchical inheritance. This is the example. Like we have A class and B is going to inherit A. Okay, C is going to inherit A also. Okay, so A is going to inherited by two subclass B as well as C. Similarly, here class D is further going to inherit A, means A is going to be inherited by B, C as well as D. So if we are going to represent just like in a tree, so we can say A could have three child B, C and D, right? So this could have a general kind of tree structure. Hybrid inheritance means more than one inheritance. If a class is going to exhibiting more than one kind of type of inheritance, that this comes under the hybrid inheritance or virtual inheritance. So hybrid inheritance is implemented by combining more than one type of inheritance. For example, combining hierarchical inheritance and multiple inheritance. Like here we see class F. This class, say here, this is the example of multiple inheritance. Okay, like more than one base class. No, this one is hierarchical. This one is hierarchical, and this one is multi-level. Okay. So if a inheritance is having more than one, or you can say two or more than two, then it is called hybrid inheritance. Hybrid means mix kind of inheritance. Okay. So here multi-level as well as um, like this is the example of multiple. Here if we see, so this is the example of multiple, and this one is the multi-level. So multiple as well, multi-level. So if we combine more than two inheritance, so this comes under the category hybrid inheritance. Okay. So there are mainly 5 categories of inheritance, which include all the almost all the required categories, and that is called single level inheritance, multi-level inheritance, multiple inheritance, hybrid inheritance, and hierarchical inheritance. Or you can say first hierarchical inheritance, then could be a hybrid inheritance. Okay. So by the inheritance, what we are going to conclude, we could rewrite. We did not create, write every time the functionality in a new class. That is the advantage. If any, new feature is going to add, for that we can add some, we can create a class, and rest things could simply be reused by their parent class and all that. So in a software product, the reusability concept is going to implemented by the inheritance. So that is all about the inheritance. Thank you.